Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my 2020 NFL Week 13 NFL predictions. Well, for the Fanatic, last week it was a tale of 2 weeks in terms of how my overall results did. I definitely improved on my straight-up picks by a significant amount, where my against the spread picks, I actually did arguably worse, or I did worse than I did the week before. So definitely a leveling, balancing week in terms of my against the spread and straight up picks. So this week so far, I am 4-10-1 against the spread, and straight up I am 10-5 through 15 games. And this week is still going on amazingly due to the Baltimore Ravens COVID-19 outbreak, which has postponed the Ravens-Steelers game that was originally supposed to happen on Thanksgiving to now Wednesday, December 2nd at 3:40 in the afternoon, due to the fact that NBC was so dedicated to having the Rockefeller Christmas lighting, which honestly I don't really care about that. I wish the game would have been in prime time, but hey, corporate money talks. So that's how the week's been so far for me, and now overall for the year, I am 92-81-3 against the spread, and straight up, I am now 115-60-1. So that equals up to 53.1 and 65.6% respectively. Definitely, my against the spread number is dipping to close around my yearly average over the last few years. So hopefully, I'll be able to improve that number to get it up to about 54 to 56%. And straight up, I had a nice bounce back, but I'm kind of now going into my yearly average to about 65 to 66% of the games predicted correctly. So definitely some work there. And it was just a weird overall week with the against the spread picks. Basically, all the games that you had the underdog in, they pretty much covered. The Bengals somehow magically covered. The Jaguars covered. The Titans covered. The one I tried to pick with the Chargers, who usually win within the score, they didn't cover. They lost by 7. They were 5.5 point dogs. The Niners ended up being able to cover and won outright. The Broncos, that one was just I didn't know that basically the entire Broncos quarterback staff was going to be struck by COVID. Jeff Driscoll legitimately, and all 3 other quarterbacks, and they had to start Kendall Hinton, the former Wake Forest wide receiver / quarterback, who threw a grand total of 9 passes. He only completed 1 of them. He was the first quarterback since week 3 of 1998. And Ryan Leaf, when he went 1 of 15 for 5 yards and 4 picks. So that one, that was just out of my hand. Arizona could have won the game by 2.5. Missed 45-yard field goal from Zane Gonzalez. And just all the other games just kind of went up and down from covers there. So just a lot of weird NFL luck to mess up bettors. I am going to count the Seattle one. I know the line ended up being 6.5, and they ended up getting that Hail Mary to Richard Rodgers last night. But I had it at 5.5, and I will take that to when I put the number down. So that was just me being very fortunate with that, not updating the line at that point. And I will talk about the rest of the games as well through my picks. For the final week of the bye season, it's the Panthers and the Buccaneers that have the byes this week. So if you have Tom Brady, the Buccaneers defense, Ronald Jones, Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, any of the Buccaneers tight ends, Teddy Bridgewater, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, or Joey Sly. If you have any of those players on your fantasy teams, bench them because they will not be playing this week. And this is the final week of the bye aspect of the schedule. 64 more games will occur to finish out the regular season at possibly 256 games through this bizarre and definitely unique 2020 NFL season. So I'm going to go straight into my picks. As an update, since the game is tomorrow, I'm doing this video today. As an update to the Baltimore-Pittsburgh game, I am changing my pick against the spread. The line is moved up to a 10-point margin, so I'm going to take Baltimore here plus 10, but I'm going to take the Pittsburgh Steelers here to win straight up. Alright, so for the Sunday games. So on Sunday, when the 9-2 New Orleans Saints go to the 4-7 Atlanta Falcons, the New Orleans Saints are 3-point favorites in this game. I like New Orleans here, -3, and New Orleans straight up. Then the next game, when the 4-7 Detroit Lions go to the 5-6 Chicago Bears, the Detroit Lions are 3-point underdogs in this game. I'm going to take the Detroit Lions here in a slight upset, +3, in Detroit, straight up. Then the next game, one of the games of the week, when the 8-3 Cleveland Browns go to the 8-3 Tennessee Titans. The Cleveland Browns are 5.5-point underdogs in this game. This is a perfect hedge game to me. These two teams are equally impressive, so I'm going to take the Cleveland Browns here plus 5.5, but I'm going to take the Tennessee Titans straight up. Then the next game, when the two 8-1 Cincinnati Bengals go to the 7-4 Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins are 11.5-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take Miami straight up, but give me the Cincinnati Bengals plus 11.5. Then the next game, when the 1-10 Jacksonville Jaguars go to the 5-6 Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings are 9.5-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take Minnesota here to win straight up, but give me the Jacksonville Jaguars plus 9.5. Then the next game, when the 6-5 Las Vegas Raiders go to the 0-11 New York Jets. The Las Vegas Raiders are 7.5-point favorites in this game. I like Las Vegas here, minus 7.5, and Las Vegas straight up. Then the next game, when the 7-4 Indianapolis Colts go to the 4-7 Houston Texans. The Indianapolis Colts are 3-point favorites in this game. I like Indianapolis here, minus 3, and Indianapolis straight up. Then in the next game, when the 7-4 Los Angeles Rams go to the 6-5 Arizona Cardinals. The Los Angeles Rams are 3-point favorites in this game. This is a division game with two teams that are very similar. So, and I know it's a small number. It's a 3-point game, and you can criticize me for hedging, but that's exactly what I'm going to do here. I'm going to take the Arizona Cardinals here plus 3, but the LA Rams straight up. Then the next game, when the 4-7 New York Giants go to the 8-3 Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks are 10-point favorites in this game. I like Seattle here, minus 10, and Seattle straight up. Then the next game, when the 3-7-1 Philadelphia Eagles go to the 8-3 Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers are 7-point favorites in this game. I like Green Bay here, minus 7, and Green Bay straight up. Then the next game, when the 5-6 New England Patriots go to the 3-8 Los Angeles Chargers. This is a pick'em game on the line, so a very rare opportunity. Just pick the game outright. I'm going to take the New England Patriots here against the spread, and New England straight up. Then the next game, when the 4-7 Denver Broncos go to the 10-1 Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs are 14-point favorites in this game. I like Kansas City here, minus 14, and Kansas City straight up. Then in the first Monday night game, when the 4-7 Washington football team goes to the 11-0 or 10-1 Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 10-point favorites in this game. I like Pittsburgh here straight up, but give me the Washington football team plus 10. Then the next game, when the 8-3 Buffalo Bills go to the 5-6 San Francisco 49ers, playing since the Santa Clara County shut down all professional and amateur sports for 3 weeks, playing at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. The Buffalo Bills are 2.5-point favorites in this game. I like Buffalo here, minus 2.5, and Buffalo straight up. And finally, in the end of Week 13 on Tuesday Night Football for the Thursday Night Football game, when the 3-8 Dallas Cowboys go to the 6-6 or 6-5 or 7-4 Baltimore Ravens. There is no line for this game because I'm just thinking that the Ravens haven't played for this week. So I'm probably going to take the Ravens on the line up to a certain number. So I'm going to take Baltimore against the spread and Baltimore straight up. I will put that number in once the website I go to, OddsSharks, puts the betting line in for that game. All right, it's time for my thoughts on each game. The New Orleans Saints over the Atlanta Falcons. This is one to where, after what I saw from the Saints and the Falcons, the more impressive team to me was the Atlanta Falcons, beating up on the Las Vegas Raiders 42-6. That is a shocking thing to see with the Atlanta Falcons. The fact that they were actually able to play a complete and dominant football game all the way through. Dominant performance, 5 turnovers on Derek Carr, 2 interceptions, the 67-yard pick six by Deion Jones. Todd Gurley didn't play. Julio Jones was limited. Calvin Ridley left the game. Powell and Ridley scored touchdowns throughout the whole game, and it was the most dominant victory I've seen Atlanta have in a couple years. You had to go back probably to 2016, the last time to have that dominant of a game. So kudos to them. And Raheem Morris is now 4-2 as the interim coach. So he has a good chance, I think, if you look at his resume of work, to actually take off the interim tag and become the next head coach of the Falcons. If I'm Arthur Blank, I seriously consider that with how dominant this team's been playing. over the last several weeks, or how improved they've been playing over the last several weeks since they fired Dan Quinn. The Saints game, look, they dominated through the ground. Latavius Murray had a big rushing day, but Taysom Hill only completed 9 passes out of 18 attempts. It was the lowest passing game since like in the 1980s. They dominated defensively, had 2 picks, a couple fumbles, only held the Broncos to 1 completion, lowest amount of passes since Tim Tebow. But you really can't count that game, essentially, because they didn't have a quarterback. So kudos to the Saints. They did exactly what they did, but honestly, you could have put the third-string quarterback, or you could have put even me out there, and I could have probably beat the Denver Broncos with the Saints' offensive weapons in that circumstance. But I'm going to take the Saints here because it has only been 2 weeks since these two teams have played each other. And do I think the Falcons, will they play better than they did against the Saints at home? Or at home compared to when they had to go to New Orleans just 2 weeks ago? Probably. But the biggest thing that I'm taking with the Saints issues or the Falcons issues, is the injuries are really mounting up. And if they don't have Todd Gurley, who didn't play last week, Brian Hill did okay. They also had Powell. They also might not have Julio, and they might not have Calvin. If you take those 3 offensive weapons away from the Falcons' offense, I don't mind Russell Gage and Zavarius. I forget his first name. You take away those main playmakers for the Falcons, I just really don't know how this offense can move the ball enough against the Saints defense, which has been one of the best in the league for this year, or definitely over the last several weeks. Do I think the Falcons have a chance? Sure. Because I feel like, look, they're going to be motivated, and the Saints offensively still kind of showed with Taysom Hill that they're not nearly the same kind of offense with Drew Brees. But looking at how the Saints have been playing, look at how dominant that defense has been playing, I think Taysom can run the ball again. They're not going to, they're not going to get as many turnovers on Taysom as compared to Derek Carr, and I think Taysom can essentially do a carbon copy of what he did just 2 weeks ago. Give the ball to Michael Thomas, use Sanders, use Harris sparingly, use Jared Cook if you can on some nice play action throws, and do some nice power runs to win this football game. Because I feel like Atlanta woke up against the Raiders, but the Raiders just from jump just weren't ready to play. They had some really bad 4th down conversions. They had some horrific penalties, penalized pretty much in big spots through the game. I don't think the Saints are going to play nearly as bad as the Raiders did. Should be a great game, and this is a massive game because I feel like if the Saints lose this one, I feel like the Seahawks or the Packers could definitely be in the driver's seat moving forward to get the number 1 seed in the NFC, which would be massive for the Saints not to have, and for those other teams too. So that's why I like the New Orleans Saints here, -3, New Orleans Saints straight up. The next game, the Detroit Lions over the Chicago Bears. This is one to where I had to look at these two teams, and the thing I have to go with is the fact that Detroit, they fired Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn on Friday, well-deserved firing for both teams. Patricia was 13-29-1. He actually had lost more games than Jim Caldwell did in 1 fewer year. Jim Caldwell was there for 4 years and lost 28 games. In 3 years, Patricia lost 29 games. And he has the first shutout in about 10 years. Yeah, first time the Lions have been shut out in about a decade. The game before with the Panthers. So, good riddance to both of those guys. I think Matt Stafford will be next. I'm not the biggest Matt Stafford fan, but I think even most Lion fans could realize that he's been there for 12 years and hasn't been able to win. And I don't think if they try to build things, they need to just get somebody else. Put Stafford in somewhere like Indy or Dallas or somewhere that could use maybe in Philadelphia. You could reunite him with Jim Schwartz if the Eagles coaches keep their jobs. And it's time for the Lions just to strip it down and start over. And get rid of a lot of the expatriates that got overpaid, like Jamie Collins, Trey Flowers, Deron Harmon. The list goes on and on. But the reason why I'm taking the Lions is because I've seen the Bears for weeks. And the Bears just offensively cannot get it done. They just cannot get it done. Trubisky, through the part of the game where it was someone in the balance, got thoroughly outworked by the Packers defense. They were down by 21 plus points before the half ended. He threw 2 horrible interceptions to Savage, and two horrible interceptions to Darnell Savage. What a monster game. He had a Preston Smith had a 14-yard fumble recovery for a touchdown. And it's one of those things to where I know the Bears are in a little bit of a better position than the Lions. They're still in the hunt by 1 game. But it's just something where, like, this one is like, I'm going to trust the better offense. The Bears defense, can they, stifle the Lions offense? Sure. The Bears defense has been basically a standard there this whole year, and they get into close games. But it just seems like now, ever since they've been on this roll, that every time they play a team now, they just can't get enough points. They can limit, the Saints to 26. They can hold the Vikings to 19. They can hold the Titans to, 17. They do a good enough job defensively, but there always just seems like with the other team, they just have enough offensive weapons or a competent quarterback that can make better decisions compared to what Trubisky and Foles have done over the last several weeks. Do I think the Bears can win this game? Sure. It's the Lions. They have Darrell Bevell as their coach, and they pretty much just given up on the season by firing their coach. But I have to take the Lions here because I just have to trust the offense a little bit more with Stafford there, with Kenny Golladay possibly coming back, and maybe just a little bit of influence with the new coach. Maybe they'll feel a little more motivated. Maybe they'll want to, try to save their own jobs and save their own rear ends from having any inkling of getting fired. But yeah, that's why I'm going to take the Lions here +3 to win. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears win, but I'm going to take the better quarterback and the more consistent offense. And hopefully DeAndre Swift can come back and play, which will help the Lions out a lot. So that's why the Detroit Lions here +3 and the Detroit Lions straight up. The next game, the Tennessee Titans over the Cleveland Browns. This is a fantastic game because I feel like you are looking at the same team. The same team. Here's the difference. Okay? Both defenses are not very good. The Titans have their main power in the back end. The front end's kind of where they're lacking. The Browns are the opposite. They have a lot of their power in their front end. Their back end is what's lacking. Both teams have good offensive lines with decent positions in the guards. The Browns have the edge of tackle. Both have serviceable tight ends. Like the Browns have a little more depth and star power, but the Titans do have Ferkser, Jonnu, and I forget the other guy, but they have some okay tight ends for what they want to do. The running games, essentially Chubb and Hunt and Henry are about a push. I would take Henry right now, but the way the Browns run the ball, they run the ball out of anybody in the league. So I think that ratio kind of tilts it kind of back to a push that way. You look at the receivers, and I'll give the Titans the edge on that one, but it's kind of close. Basically, they have A.J. Brown, and the Browns have Landry and a bunch of nobodies. And I know Corey Davis, he's not a scrub, but I'm not the biggest Corey Davis fan. So essentially, what it came down to me was it's a home game for the Titans, and I got to go with the better quarterback right now, and that's Ryan Tannehill. Baker Mayfield has played very good football over the last month. No turnovers. He had 2 TDs against the Jags. One to Landry, who had his first, I believe, 100-yard game since early on in the year, like just week 2 or 3 when they played Dallas, or week 3 or 4 when they played Washington or Dallas. Austin Hooper caught his first touchdown, I believe, since those early games against those same teams. And the Cleveland, for the first time since 2007, is not going to have a losing record, which is significant. But I'm taking the Titans here just because I feel like the Titans, they just do things better than the Browns. They run the ball better than the Browns. They're not as penalized as the Browns. Brian Tannehill can make some more throws and is more dependable than Baker at this point. And I just feel like with a Denzel Ward injury, that's a significant injury. He was out last week. He'll probably be out this week again. That's significant for a secondary, which is kind of been banged up from injuries before the year started. And I think Tannehill will take advantage of that with the offensive weapons that he has. Do I think the Browns have a chance to win this game? Absolutely. I feel like the Browns, they can run the ball. They can manage the clock. Baker has not turned it over as much. And the Titans' defense has been, for the most of the year, been the worst defense on third down throughout the last 10 or 12 years. So the Browns definitely can sustain drives and definitely chew the clock to keep Henry and that offense off the field. But in this game. I've been more impressed with the Titans pretty much game to game against opponent compared to the Browns, who have played well, but have played weaker competition to get to this point, and I think the Titans are just a little bit better. This would be better than Titans-Bears, but it's kind of like that same dynamic, to where I think the Browns and Titans are basically a similar team. The Titans are just a little bit better at quarterback, at running back, definitely better at wide receiver, a little bit better at tight end, and a better coach, and I would say a push basically everywhere else, and they're better at punter. So, but I'm taking the Browns here because it's way too many points. This is going to come down to a field goal or even a final score of the game, which is what the Titans do best. Most that's what I'm saying. The Titans, they've had 2 surprising victories this year with the Bills and the Colts where they blew them out. Every other game has basically been within 4 to 6 points. So I feel confident taking the Browns in that just by the history of this team. So that's why I like the Tennessee Titans here to win straight up. The Cleveland Browns plus 5.5. The next game, the Miami Dolphins over the Cincinnati Bengals. This one is fairly easy, just on the sense that the Miami Dolphins, they handled their business against the Jets. Fitzpatrick threw for 2 more touchdowns. Breida had a nice game. They got 2 picks on Sam Darnold. The Dolphins only gave up 1.5 points per game against the Jets all year. And if there's one team that's just a little bit better than the Jets, it's the Bengals, who with Brandon Allen and Finley have been just horrific offensively. They got basically one huge break from a fumble, I believe, late in the fourth quarter in that game to get them within 2 points. It took Brandon Allen throwing an interception to, I believe, Ryan or Peppers. They got the game-sealing interception that knocked the Bengals out of there. And I feel like, again, like the Dolphins, they can just win this game based off how they've been playing. I just think the interesting thing for me, why I took the Bengals plus 11.5, is that Zach Taylor has been able to, even with all the injuries, keep this team within the last 2 games against more mediocre competition within 11 points. So I think they lost 20-9 to Washington, and they lost by 2 to the Giants. And I just feel like with the Dolphins, with Tua maybe not playing again, I don't know if the Dolphins can kind of hold on, because I feel like Fitzpatrick, he had some moments where they had back-to-back drives with fumbles by their running backs. And I think with the Bengals, they have enough offensive talent, especially to get Giovanni Bernard going, that they can kind of hold on within this margin. If Tua plays, I feel like that could end up being a blowout, but also again with Tua, you don't know if the last time we saw him against the Denver pass rush. I know the Bengals don't nearly have as much talent across the board that way, but I feel like with the Bengals, there's something like I feel like that's way too many points of a team that just somehow just seems to find a way to claw and fight. They're like a poor man version, or they're like the AFC poor man version of the Panthers. I feel like a bad football team, but basically every week they give their best shots more often than not. So, and I think that's how they'll be able to cover against the Dolphins. That's why the Dolphins are straight up at the Cincinnati Bengals plus 11.5. The next game, the Minnesota Vikings over the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is a game to where, look, I have been impressed with what the Vikings have been able to do from their 0-4, 0-5 start to basically getting to 5-6. They won, or a 1-4 start to a 4-1 record after that to get to 5-6. They have been playing incredibly well. Kirk Cousins, that is a big-time comeback for a guy of his stature to get that. I thought the game was over, but essentially the conservative nature of Matt Rule kicking the field goal to go up by 6 cost him at the rear end, or cost him in the end. And then if you look at how the Vikings played, I thought that, they played a solid game through that last drive. I feel happy for Chad Beebe, the son of Don Beebe, getting that game-winning touchdown where he fumbled around the red zone to put the Panthers in position to kick the field goal in that situation. And I just want to say real quickly, people are going to talk about the offensive rookie of the year with regard to Justin Herbert. And I understand that, and Herbert's played fantastic. I have a guy, though, that I believe that should win the offensive rookie of the year that people aren't going to talk about nearly as much, but that, to me, I believe, is Minnesota Vikings wide receiver Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson has 52 receptions for 918 yards. I believe he's leading all rookies, and he has been sensational. He has made Adam Thielen tradable, and Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs is doing his thing in Buffalo, but he has made him completely, irrelevant to talk about in Minnesota. And honestly, I think out of all the rookies, because you could say, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, basically that's still Mahomes' offense, which is true, but he's really kind of been like mediocre ever since that game. Besides the Bills game and the Texans game, he really has been mediocre, where he hasn't done anything horrible, but he's done anything memorable or consistent. You can say, oh, Helaire's, great as a running back. And Herbert, I think the issue is, I know Herbert's put up fantastic numbers, hasn't had that many turnovers, 300-plus yards a game. I think I said last week that basically it's just him and Mahomes as the first guys with 3,000 yards through their first 10 starts. So that's pretty incredible, but at the same time, at the end of the day, 2-8 is 2-8. And I'd rather have the possible 500 wide receiver in Justin Jefferson get the award for being more of a winning contributor compared to Justin Herbert, who plays a better position and is a better pure player than Justin Jefferson. But I feel like Jefferson's just been too consistent and too good not to, I feel like, get the Offensive Rookie of the Year due to the lack of winning with Herbert. It's not his fault that they haven't been winning, but I do think the winning has to matter to a little bit of an extent for the Offensive Rookie of the Year, and that's why I would give it to Justin Jefferson. But to go from that little diatribe there, I'm going to take the Vikings here just because, again, I feel like they've been on a great roll, and the Jaguars are just not a very good team. But I'm going to take the Jags plus 9.5 because it feels like to me throughout this whole year, through injuries or just poor play, every time the Jags switch quarterbacks, from when they went to Gardner, to they went to Jake, to now they're at Mike. The first couple games, when you look at Gardner, Colts Titans played really well. Jags fell off to Luton. Texans Packers played okay, covered the spread by 10 points and all that, did well. Same thing with Mike Glennon. I just feel like Mike Glennon played a much better game than people thought against the Browns. Came down to a missed 2-point conversion and the Browns running out the clock to win the game for the Browns. And I just feel like with the Vikings, the way they played, I feel like they'll let the Jags hang around for some odd reason, especially with Kirk Cousins fumbling and turning the ball over as he's been. That's why I think they're going to be able to hold on. The Jags have always just shown you by about the third game, the Jag quarterback will be bad. And then they'll go to the next one, and then he'll play 2 games to where they'll lose, but they'll be competitive. And that's the same thing I think with Jake Luton, right? So Gardner 1-2, got pulled by 3. Jake Luton, Texans Packers, horrible against Pittsburgh. Mike Glennon, Browns, Vikings, and then he'll get destroyed by I believe they play the Titans next. So that's why I have the Jacksonville Jaguars here plus 9.5, but the Minnesota Vikings straight up. The next game, the Las Vegas Raiders over the New York Jets. It's the Jets, where I know the Raiders were horrible, but it's the New York Jets. Like, the New York Jets essentially, you pretty much know that by any number, they can pretty much, on most competition, cover within 10. I feel like if you have 10 with the Jets, either as a dog or as a favorite, you pretty much can feel confident covering that most of the time. Sam Darnold looked horrible. He threw 2 interceptions. Frank Gore's really the only bright spot. It's 37-year-old running back, who I believe is disrespected because he is the 4-time all-leading rusher, and people don't think should be a Hall of Famer. He should be. That statistic is good enough to say itself. And I think it's a weird revenge game because, I'll put it this way. This is very similar. The Raiders were, I think, 6-4, 6-5 last year. They were kind of a mediocre team, and they were starting to slide, and they played the Jets, and the Jets kicked their rear ends, and they blew them out. I don't think it's going to happen this time. I think it's going to be the opposite way. I think the Raiders are going to pour it onto the Jets. But I just feel like, again, for the Raiders, this is a must-win, and they have to look good doing it because they still have to play the Dolphins, they still have to play the Colts, and they still have to play the Chargers. 3 games that, could very well decide either if the Raiders make the playoffs or even go further, even if John Gruden keeps his job with where they're at. So, if he loses those 3 games, which is possible, you could see John Gruden getting fired at the end of the year for another collapse that people did not expect or the Raiders fans do not deserve. But I'm going to take the Raiders here. I just feel like, again, the Jets, they just got embarrassed by Fitzpatrick. Carr's been better. They're angry. They're going to be motivated. And just like, if the Jets won that game, I honestly think you could fire John Gruden at that point. If he loses to this Jet team again for back-to-back years from Adam Gase, it'll be time to fire John Gruden, because at that point, I don't think anybody's going to have confidence in the Raiders, and they may end up going into 7-9 realm again for the second straight year, and for the third time in for three consecutive losing seasons, which to me would give a ultimate justification for firing John Gruden. But who knows? And for the Jets, look, they just need to survive. They really only have one maybe competitive game left, and that's New England on the road. Because I think they have Seattle, they have the Rams, they have Seattle, the Rams, and I forget the other team that's put in there. Seattle, the Rams, the Patriots, and it's another great team. Oh, the Browns. There we go. Seattle, Rams, Browns, Patriots. They should lose their next three to get to 0-15. The Pats game is going to decide basically if they can, join that club. I believe they will, which will mean for the third time in 12 seasons you'll have a winless team, and Adam Gase and all his staff should be gone, and nobody should ever hear from him ever again. So that's like the Las Vegas Raiders here minus 7.5, and Las Vegas Raiders straight up. The next game, the Indianapolis Colts over the Houston Texans. This is one to where the Houston Texans got bit by the suspension bug, to where wide receiver Will Fuller and cornerback Bradley Roby are done for the rest of the year due to respective PED suspensions, 6 games each. So that means Bradley Roby will not be able to play Game 1 of the 2021 season, and Will Fuller will enter free agency having to serve a 1-game suspension, regardless if he comes back to Houston or not. And I know Indianapolis, they got shredded by Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry had 178 yards, 3 touchdowns, all from the first half. He played sensational. And the Colts defense just could not stop him. And it was weird because Rivers, I was kind of surprised. Rivers was kind of going right back up and down the field itself, but they got a 3-and-out. They had the Titans the Colts of the punt within their end zone, or near their end zone. Then the Titans were able to kind of just go down the field and get a score, and the Titans never looked back after that. Rivers threw a horrible interception to a corner named, I don't know his first name, Borders, which was really bad. And it was just pretty much a decisive game after that. You also had A.J. Brown, not only with the 60-plus yard touchdown, but the 42-yard onside kick recovery for a touchdown as well. I don't think Houston's offense, I know Deshaun's been phenomenal. He's gone 6 games without a pick. He's thrown, I think, at least, like I said, like 12 or 13 touchdowns without a pick. He's been sensational. But you're playing a Colts defense, which hopefully will get Buckner back, and you're playing a Colts offense, or a Texans offense, that essentially will have Brandon Cooks and Kiki Kuti as the primary 2 weapons. So if you double team Cooks, you essentially let Deshaun Watson try to win with his remainder of his roster or his receiving core, and I don't think that's going to work. The Colts were able to win The Colts were able to win one of these games last year with Jacoby Brissett. I feel like Rivers has played on a better perspective. And I just feel like, again, with that limited offense, with those 2 guys gone, I just don't think the Texans can be able to score out, because I feel like David or Duke Johnson, they're not going to be able to run the ball that well. And they won't have their deep threat now they won't have their double deep threat with Fuller and Cooks. And I just feel like the Texans are in for a rough game. And I feel like with Frank Reich has always somehow seemed to play the Texans pretty competitively when he's had a competent quarterback. You look at Andrew Luck back in 2018, the Week 14 win and the wild card win. I don't think they're going to be nearly as effective and as decisive as that, but I feel like the Colts should be able to handle their business with their defense being more motivated, playing against a more limited Houston offense. That should get the Colts a 8th win and secure Frank Reich's positioning going into year 4 of his term with the Colts. So that's like Indianapolis here -3, Indianapolis straight up. The next game, the Los Angeles Rams over the Arizona Cardinals. This is one where it's a 50-50 game. And usually, the logic is when you have a genuine toss-up game here, you usually go with the home team and the better quarterback. But this time, to me, it has to come down to the better defense. Kyler and Jared have both had very bad games against the Niners and the Patriots, respectively. And both their defenses did their part to do the best they could to keep those quarterbacks within those games. You had the 2 interceptions and 88 total yards passing held by the Arizona defense on Cam Newton, while the Niners had 2 or 3 turnovers themselves. One was a fumble return touchdown by cornerback Troy Hill. Aaron Donald was had a big sack in the game and was wreaking havoc. But both teams just could not, at the end of the day, in crucial moments. Goff throws a pick 6 to first-round pick Javon Kinlaw, and Kyler throws a pick to Adrian Phillips late in the game that gives the Patriots the lead. And it just, to me, I have to trust the better defense. The Rams, I feel like you can put Jalen on DeAndre, and I think that could be one-on-one. And I feel like the Rams pass rush should be able to get to Kyler Murray. They've done a good job last year. I remember they beat them pretty well at home, and I know the Rams won on the road as well. Do I think Kyler will play better? Yes, he will. But it's just one of those things where I feel like Brandon Staley, the Rams defensive coordinator, has done a very good job, and he knows how he'll confuse Kyler, who's had some ups and downs, especially with the AC shoulder injury, which I know he wasn't on the injury report, but he's been dealing with. And I just like the Rams defense to clamp down a little bit more than the Cardinals. Because I feel like the Rams just have better defensive talent to match up with the Cardinals. And I think Jared Goff, using Cam, using Darrell, using Malcolm, can run the ball at a good enough clip. And I feel like the Rams can get maybe 1 or 2 turnovers to help Jared Goff get into short positions to win the game. Would I be surprised if the Cardinals won? No, because I feel like the Cardinals are very much like the Rams. Young quarterback, very offensive-driven minded, a lot of, scheme, a lot of misdirection, a lot of pizzazz, Cliff more the college style, Sean of a lot more reverse sweeps, a lot more motion. But at the end of the day, I'm going to take the better defense, and that's the Rams defense in this spot to win. But I'm going to take Arizona because it's a 50-50 game, and I'm just going to hedge my bet and just hopefully I get, one right either way. Or, either the Cardinals win or the Rams win just straight up. Either way I'll get something right. The whole deal. So that's why I like the LA Rams here straight up at the Arizona Cardinals +3. The next game, the Seattle Seahawks over the New York Giants. I am taking the Seattle Seahawks because they have played really good football over the last month. Their defense has gotten better. They have had the most sacks in the league in 19 over the last 4 games. They have cut down their yardage. They've cut down their point totals. Russell Wilson, the last 2 games, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. He's completing about almost 71% of his passes. Chris Carson came back with a big 16-yard touchdown run. And the Seahawks just feel like they are building that momentum. And I know, look, they got to this part of their schedule. They're playing a lot of scrub teams. That's fine. You only can play on your schedule. And it's not really going to move a lot. But I just feel like with Seattle, they are just playing too much on a good roll. I believe Wilson's played the Giants 3 times in his career. And he's never lost to the New York Giants that I know of. The Giants, they have played the best, I believe, through 11 games out of any NFC East team. Because, again, they've been in so many one-score games. Daniel Jones, 3 straight games, hasn't turned the ball over. I thought Wayne Gallman had another nice touchdown run. I think he scored a touchdown in 4 or 5 straight games. So they've been able to play well. But when Daniel Jones hurt his hamstring, that's where I kind of felt that it went away for the Giants in that moment. Because Colt McCoy came in. He only threw for 31 yards, and they really couldn't move the football. Fortunately, they were playing Brandon Allen, who was a worse quarterback, and the Giants' defense was able to get a couple of big turnovers on drives where the Bengals were moving the ball. I don't think they're going to get as many turnovers, as much pressure. Though I know the Seattle offensive line has not been great, but that's basically they have Dwayne Brown and Damian Lewis in terms of running, but they didn't have Shell, who was out, who could be out again for another week. And the Giants have a decent pass rush by Patrick Graham. I believe that's the defensive coordinator for the Giants. And I really like how the job he's done with that Giants defense with guys like Kyle Fackrell, Blake Martinez, Dexter. You have Dexter Lawrence, Jabril Peppers, Big Cat Leonard Williams. I really like that Giants defense, and they played well. But I think with Colt McCoy at quarterback, I know that Cole had beat the Seahawks before back in 2011. That was nearly a decade ago. This is a completely different Seattle team. They have this insane stat where I think they said that over the last, since 2012 or in the Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson era, if they are leading by 4 points at the half, they have never lost a football game. And I just feel like they're going to get to that position again. The last time the Giants went into Seattle, they blew them out pretty decisively. That was with Eli and Odell back in 2016. I see something very similar happening if Daniel Jones doesn't play, which I don't think he will. So that's like Seattle are -10 and Seattle straight up. The next game, the Green Bay Packers over the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles are a very bad football team. They played the Seattle defense last night, which are giving up about 343 yards per game through the air. Carson Wentz at 215, and you can take 33 of those away, which will get you to 182 total yards passing before a Hail Mary by Richard Rodgers, who has caught now 2 Hail Marys for 2 different complete, quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers and Carson Wentz. I look at the Eagles and go, they really don't like to run the ball, which amazes me because Miles Sanders has one of the highest yards per rush, but he only had 15 yards on 5 or 7 attempts yesterday. Alshon really can't make that many big plays. Jalen Reagor can't make any plays. J.J. Arcega-White's on the COVID list, and he's hurt. Dallas Goedert had a decent game at 75 yards, but Carson Wentz also been sacked 46 times. And you're looking at this Packers pass rush. The Smith brothers are going to be very excited to play the Philadelphia offensive line, who's playing with a right guard in Jason Peters, who's not even a guard, and he's playing with a dislocated toe. And I just feel like, again, the Packers will be motivated from the Thursday night game that happened last year. That was a big moment for the Eagles because everybody thought, including me, the Packers were going to go in there at home and stomp the crap out of the Eagles. And they didn't. They ended up winning, I believe, 27-23. It came down to that last pass to, I believe, Valdez-Scantling in the corner of the end zone, which Aaron tried to throw to the double-covered guy. And Shepard, it was Shepard who was open, but he threw it to Scantling instead, and they lost the game that way. I honestly see this Eagles-Packers game very much more so in the 2014 version, where I believe the Packers won 52-20. Green Bay, it's pretty much going to be a wipeout. Rodgers has been sensational. He's only thrown 2 interceptions since the Bucks game. Every other game he's been flawless. 4 more touchdowns, no picks. On Sunday, the game was over by the first half. Devontae Adams has scored a touchdown in 6 straight games. Also, I'm going to congratulate Mercedes Lewis, who's the first NFL tight end, I believe they said, to have 200 games played and 4,000 receiving yards. He's only the second player in NFL history to have that kind of notion throughout his career. So kudos to Mercedes Lewis. Do I think the Eagles could put up a fight? Maybe. But I just feel like with the Packers' offensive line, which was dominant, they did not allow Aaron Rodgers to get hit or sacked through the entire game. I think it's significant. I just think the Packers are just going to roll through them. Sorry, Eagle. And I do want to see if Jalen Hurts gets more opportunities. That was a big conversation throughout the last couple of days. That Jalen got all his first-team reps, but he did nothing with them. And the Eagles decided to do nothing with him, which surprised me. So that's why I like Green Bay here -7 and Green Bay straight up. The next game, the New England Patriots over the Los Angeles Chargers. This is one where I'm taking the coach over the talent. Bill Belichick has an insane record against first or second year quarterbacks. I believe he's only lost like a handful of times. Like when Lamar beat him last year, that was only, I think, like the 3rd or 4th time he had lost to a first or second year quarterback. And I know the Chargers on paper are much more talented offensively and talent in terms of quarterback, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, offensive lines. They are loaded in that way. But just culturally and schematically and time management-wise, if you watch that Chargers-Bills game, that was a disaster of time management to how the Chargers ended up losing that football game. And I just have to take Bill in the situation because I feel like, again, like the Patriots and the Chargers, always when they, get together, more often than not, Bill usually wins these games, and even they usually come in heartbreaking fashion. 06 divisional round, the the 2012 game where Edelman scored that game-winning touchdown pretty decisively. And the Patriots-Charger game back in 2018 in the playoff game. Like, the Pats always somehow seem to be able to outmaneuver the Chargers. I feel like, now more than not, the Chargers more often than not have more talent than the Patriots every time they play them. They just don't know how to mesh together, and the coach always somehow seems to make some boneheaded decision or some awkward decision that costs the Chargers these games, if that was Patriots or not. But that's how they go with the Pats here. Cam played horribly. That was the lowest amount of yards, over 180 yards, just barely over 180 yards, and a win for the first time in 10 years for the Pats for a win. But I'm going with the coach, the record against the first or second year quarterback, and just the inability for the Chargers to somehow close games. That if Cam, even if Cam played well, it would have helped, but I don't think, with Cam, the way he's been playing, he's been able to rush the ball effectively for almost a career high in rushing touchdowns. His passing has not been great at all, but you could argue that's just kind of schematics and lack of talent. Because also Julian Edelman had to be on the COVID list. Take the coach and the managing over the talent in this one, and that's what I'm going to do. That's why I have the Patriots winning here over the LA Chargers, and I pick them against the spread and straight up. The next game, the Kansas City Chiefs over the Denver Broncos. KC's just the best team in football. They and the Pittsburgh Steelers are the only two teams that have beaten every single opponent on their schedule. They've beaten every single one of their opponents. Mahomes, 300 passing yards and a half. That was the first time in, nearly 20 years. And for Tyreek Hill, 200 yards in the first half. He's only the second player in the last 30 years to have that, and 296 yards total. That's one of the top. That's the highest, or 200 plus yards and 3 touchdowns. The last guy to have those numbers was Jimmy Smith back in the 2000 season for the Jaguars, which is a unique fact of trivia. And I just look at the Chiefs and go, they're playing a Denver team that may get their quarterbacks back, but that won't matter. The last time they played them, they beat them pretty badly. There was a pick six, a kick return. There was fumbles. There was snowing. And the Broncos offense just could not do anything. I think the Broncos, Phillip Lindsay got hurt. I pretty much am going to see a carbon copy, especially even now at the home game, for the Kansas City Chiefs. Mahomes only threw for 200 yards, but it didn't matter. I think that the Chiefs can pretty much just go in there, do their own thing. They could even have a turnover or two, and I don't think it's going to matter. And I think for the Broncos, it's going to be time for John Elway to question if Vic Fangio. I believe John Elway should be fired as well, but I think Vic Fangio does have some questions in terms of if he can keep his job for another year, because I think this team is just in a very bad position. So that's like the Kansas City Chiefs here, -14, and Kansas City straight up. Then the next game, the Pittsburgh Steelers over the Washington football team. This is one where, look, the Washington football team from Alex Smith's helm has not been a bad football team. They are 2-1 in his games. He's only thrown 1 interception, which was the pick to Jalen Smith on Thanksgiving, and they have played well. Their defense has been fantastic. Antonio Gibson became the first running back since Barry Sanders in 1997 to have 3 rushing touchdowns in a Thanksgiving Day game. You had Montez Sweat get a pick 6, Tim Settle, Deron Payne. They got sacks and generated a ton of pressure. Chase Young got a sack. And I thought, Terry McLaurin, who is a top 5 receiver this year in terms of total yards, receiving yards, has been fantastic. But they're playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, and if you've seen the Washington football team throughout this year, they have played well against bad teams in their own division. Every time they played a competent team outside of their division that was above 500, they looked bad. Cleveland did not look good. Arizona looked horrible. The Rams looked horrible. This is the Steelers, the best team in the AFC, best team in the NFL by far. I don't think it's going to be that much of a contest. I think Pittsburgh, their defense is going to get to Alex Smith. I'm worried if Alex Smith can stay healthy, though he's been able to go through 3 games, so maybe that fear is, can be subsided. But I'm going to take Washington here +10 based on the sole reason that I look at Washington and say that they have an opportunity with the amount of time that was given to the by the Steelers to play the Ravens going into the Washington game. I feel like the Washington could cover the spread because Pittsburgh hasn't been focused on Washington at all. The next time they're going to start focusing on Thursday, so that will give them 3 days, arguably, to prepare or focus for Washington. I think they're talented enough to win, but I don't know if they're going to be able to cover because Washington now will essentially have had 7, 8, 9, 10 plus days to prepare for Pittsburgh, where Pittsburgh's really only been focusing for about 3. So that's all, like Washington here plus 10 and the Pittsburgh straight up. Then the final 2 games, the Bills over the 49ers. This is one to where I feel like the Bills just have a little bit more talent, and I'm going to trust that Nick Mullins makes one more mistake than Josh Allen, and that gets the Bills this victory. And also they have to play in Arizona, so I think that'll be kind of a weird dynamic. But I'd be surprised if the Niners won this game. No, because the Niners have basically shown you, for the most part, that besides the Packers game, they really have not been, horribly beaten by anybody. They swept the Rams for the second straight year, which is stunning to me. Especially with Nick Mullins getting that victory, but the way he played, But I think at the end of the day, the Bills, they're rested. They have, more dynamic offense. They have a more dynamic quarterback. And I feel like the Bills' defense can generate enough pressure on Mullins to where I don't think Debo will have as effective as a game. And I just think the Bills have the momentum and the confidence compared to the Niners, who haven't been bad, but have just been injury-stricken through the whole year. And I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference against the Bills team that I don't see as often. So that's like the Bills here minus 2.5 and the Bills straight up. And finally, the Baltimore Ravens over the Dallas Cowboys. This is one to where essentially the Cowboys are one of the worst teams in the league. They have given up 20-plus points, I believe, in 11 straight games. They do not look great at all defensively. They don't have any of their offensive line, so if the Ravens can get their pass rushers back, they can get Calais, they can get Judon back. We can just harass Andy Dalton pretty much the whole night. The last time the Ravens went into Baltimore, they lost in 2012 off of a missed field goal by Dan Bailey. So I think before that, it had been, since... So it's been 8 years since they tried to win. I know the last time we played them, they beat us in 2016 in Dak's rookie year. Dak's not there. It's Andy Dalton. The Ravens have had a great history of Andy Dalton. We've beaten Andy Dalton more often than not, and I'm still angry at him for beating us in 2017. And I just feel like, again, with the offensive line as banged up as it is, I know the Cowboys have better offensive receiving weapons on the outside, but I think Lamar's just going to play better, and I think we'll be able to run the ball effectively down the the Dallas defensive line. The Dallas defensive line is giving up 300 rushing yards to Cleveland, 200 plus to Washington, another 180 plus to Washington on Thanksgiving, another 200 plus to the Arizona Cardinals. If the Ravens game gets pushed back again, who knows? Or more people test positive, who knows if we're going to be able to play against them, or will I take the Cowboys against the spread? Probably if there's more tests. But if there's no test, which I'm not expecting, I think the Ravens win pretty decisively and easily in a game that is not going to mean a lot in terms of impressive, but definitely in terms of just pure winning will help guide the Ravens possibly back to the playoffs. So those are my thoughts and picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, subscribe, and please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page. There are several guys and gals that make picks like I do every single week. And that's it. And so good luck to all players, coaches, teams, and fellow prognosticators. And until next week for my Week 14 predictions, this is Matthew Fanatic signing off. Everybody out there, socially distance, wear a mask, and please stay safe. Until next time, so long.